He admittedly thinks it's okay for adults to have sex with children. He even wants to make it legal.
This is Nathan Larson, an accountant from Charlottesville, Virginia, running as an independent candidate in Virginia's congressional election.
This is hard to read and certainly hard to hear. He admittedly thinks it's okay for adults to have sex with children. He even wants to make it legal.
Normally, we don't give people with abhorrent beliefs a platform in which to share those ideas. But this man is running for Congress, and as much as I personally hate to put this man on TV, we believe it's important for people to know why he's running for Congress. Nathan Larson told me he wants to, quote, restore liberty and make incest legal.
What about sexual relations with your own children?
Like, I would favor, like, legalizing incest.
Why is that?
Just because personal freedom.
What about the children's rights? Wouldn't that be rape to have sex with a child?
Well, like with girls, I mean, I just believe that it should be for fathers to make those decisions.
And you don't find anything wrong with that?
I mean, it's not for me to intrude on another family and tell them what they should do.
Wouldn't that be really dangerous for children?
I don't see how we know that. Like,
children are human beings. They're not property. What about their protection?
Oh, the law doesn't treat them as having the full rights of adults.
Nathan Larson also told me he doesn't think wives should be allowed to accuse their husbands of rape.
It really doesn't get any more insane than that. And if Larson, who has described himself as a quasi-neo-reactionary libertarian, finds himself in prison for raping his ex-wife or assaulting a minor, there's a good chance Larson the Chester won't make it out alive. What kind of society would allow someone like Larson to even come out of the shadows? A culture that sexualizes children, that's what. In a statement to LifeSite News, the Boy Scouts of America said that condoms will be made available through the medical facilities set up throughout the camps, where an estimated 50,000 are expected to attend. Is this a sure ticket to a merit badge for not knocking your girlfriend up? Or is there something far more sinister at play? Morality, which is essential to the continuation of our society, has been run roughshod since Obama reined in the PC culture that has opened doors for predators. Larson and his ilk are criminals, plain and simple.
An Australian archbishop has been found guilty of covering up child sexual abuse. On May 22nd, a court in New South Wales ruled Philip Wilson covered up the abuse of altar boys for his priest colleague James Fletcher. Fletcher was convicted of 9 child sexual abuse charges in 2004 and died in prison. Wilson denied knowing of Fletcher's actions throughout the trial, but the court sided with one of Fletcher's victims who said he told Wilson about what happened to him in the 1970s. Another victim told reporters outside the court the verdict marks, quote, one of the most significant days in criminal law in Australian history. The ruling makes Wilson the most senior Catholic in the world to be charged and convicted of such offenses. He will be sentenced in June and faces up to 2 years in prison. The Catholic Church said in a statement Wilson is disappointed by the conviction.
A landslide for Ireland's Yes campaign, a seismic shift for Irish society. The country's Prime Minister, Leo Varadkar, called the result a silent revolution. He's campaigned strongly for a change in the law. It's been a bitterly fought referendum on doorsteps and high streets across the country. The Eighth Amendment was introduced in 1983 and all but bans abortion. But every year, thousands of Irish women travel abroad, most to the UK, to end their pregnancies. Many others take illegal abortion pills without medical supervision. Amnesty International says it's time to respect Irish women's reproductive rights. Vote counts across the country have all confirmed the same thing, that Ireland wants radical change. Here in the capital, Dublin, the epicentre of the Yes movement, people have voted overwhelmingly for repealing the 8th Amendment. The results are bitter disappointment for those who voted to keep the 8th Amendment. Many no voters believe the change in law will mean abortion on demand.
I think it's a sad day for this country, personally. I think that in the long term, I think it'll be a decision that will be regretted long term, long after the political establishment will have disappeared and gone on to greater things.
The government has proposed allowing unlimited access to abortions during the first 12 weeks of pregnancy if the referendum passed. Parliament will now determine the final details of the law. For the first time in a generation, Irish people have had a chance to vote on this sensitive issue. They have spoken loudly.
Malaysian police arrested 15 terrorist suspects, including a housewife who allegedly planned attacks at a polling station. Inspector General of Police Muhammad Fuzi Harun said, quote, "The woman was planning to launch attacks using a car targeting non-Muslim voters during the general election. The woman who allegedly planned the attack on behalf of the Islamic State also equipped her car with a gas canister for it to explode." According to counterterrorism expert Ahmad El Muhammad, the housewife is the first Malaysian woman to mastermind a terror plot. A 17-year-old student, who was among those arrested, reportedly concocted 6 Molotov cocktails with plans to use them on churches. He was arrested 1 hour after uploading a threatening video about his planned attack.
In Silicon Valley, devices are an essential part of daily life. But many of the tech titans creating these products choose to power down when they leave the office, following industry giants like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, who restricted their own kids' access to technology at home. Pierre Laurent has worked for companies including Microsoft and Intel. He says the tech industry designs products to hook users.
Do you think the average parent is aware of that danger?
No, I don't think the parents are aware of that.
Pierre and his wife Monica became concerned that their 3 children would miss out on real-life experiences while on their devices. Researchers are still learning more about how technology affects kids, but some early studies of heavy tech users show potential links to a rise in teen suicide rates, addiction, anxiety, and loss of social skills. None of the 3 children played video games or watched TV, and they didn't get cell phones until they were teenagers. Their 13-year-old daughter Maya spends her free time knitting and playing in the backyard.
Do you ever miss technology?
Not really, no. The only thing I might miss technology for is listening to music or an audiobook.
Every parent is really struggling with how to reap the benefits of technology while minimizing some of the risks.
For Monica and Pierre, the hope is that a tech-free childhood will lead to more balance later in life.
Young children need to grow in a different environment that doesn't have that much technology in it.
Can cell phones really cause cancer? It's been a question that's dodged researchers for years. But a group of experts are now saying the results of some tests are pretty surprising.
Millions, maybe billions of us constantly call, text, click, take pictures, and play on our cell phones. Even the top cellular radiation researchers from around the world have a hard time untethering. But they gathered recently in North Carolina to talk about cell phone concerns and whether they really do increase our chances of developing cancer. The panel voted that the results from years of testing on mice and rats were more significant than originally thought. They say they found clear evidence that phone radiation caused tumors in the hearts of rats, similar to tumors in people.
In humans, it's seen in the vestibular nerve in the ear, the acoustic nerve. We found it in the heart, although our animals were exposed in their whole body condition.
While a given animal is not making a cell phone call, they are, throughout their short 2-year lifetime, getting the same exposure that we would expect people to get in their 70-plus years of life.
Activists are now calling for more protections, citing separate studies from France and Italy.
Many brain tumor lawsuits going on right now that are waiting for a study like this.
And there are new concerns on the horizon. 5G is about to debut a stronger system of broadband. Some activists say the government has a responsibility to increase regulations.
At a lab in New York, Verizon invited us to meet some of the entrepreneurs developing tools to run on the next generation of wireless technology.
How important is 5G to your mission?
5G is extremely important.
Jonathan Reeves demonstrated his product, ARE Visio.
As you move around, the object stays fixed in space.
Look at that. That's amazing.
Allowing users in different locations to interact with 3D images projected through a lens.
Today we can do this using Wi-Fi technology, and we can do it using landline technology, but of course you're then tied to particular locations. With 5G now we can begin to extend this, so we can actually begin to start doing this on building sites. We can start doing it on the factory floor. So it really opens up a whole new world.
But before this world can become reality, this one needs to change. 5G requires the installation of new equipment across the U.S.
So this pole here is 5G. This is the future right here.
You got it.
Every wireless company is working to build its own 5G network. Melissa Arnoldi leads AT&T's efforts.
If you don't already have one of these in your neighborhood, they're coming.
That's absolutely right. They're coming.
She says 5G uses high-frequency waves that support faster speeds, but don't travel as far as current wireless frequencies. So instead of relying on large cell phone towers spread far apart, they need small cell sites that are much closer together.
We're going to use our existing infrastructure today, whether it's light poles, whether it's street lights. We're going to make sure that we don't make it obtrusive to our customers and to the citizens.
Yet some don't share the enthusiasm.
The cell towers are called small cell towers, but they're not so small when they're in your front yard.
Donna Barron is protesting plans to convert light poles in her Montgomery County, Maryland neighborhood into small cell sites.
This will cause cancer.
She was one of several people who raised health concerns at a government hearing last month.
This stuff is untested on kids. Their safety is not certain. These untested technologies are, at this time, not ready to be unleashed into our lives.
My husband and I would randomly joke sometimes, like, I bet these devices are listening to what we're saying.
Until recently, Danielle's home was completely wired up in every room with the Amazon Echo. Her family used the Alexa app to do everything from turn up the heat to turn off the lights. But Danielle told us via Skype that 2 weeks ago, their love for Alexa changed with an alarming phone call.
The person on the other line said, unplug your Alexa devices right now.
That person was one of her husband's employees calling from Seattle.
We go around and unplug them all. He proceeded to tell us that he had received audio files, recordings from what was going on in our house.
Danielle says her Amazon device in her Portland home recorded a private conversation and sent that recording to a random contact, which happened to be the employee in Seattle.
At first, my husband was like, no, you didn't. And he's like, you're sat there talking about hardwood floors. And we're, oh gosh, you really did.
Danielle listened to the conversation and she couldn't believe someone 176 miles away heard it too.
I felt invaded, like total privacy invasion. Like immediately I'm like, I'm never plugging that device in again. I can't trust it.
Danielle unplugged all the devices.
It was one of these that sent it.
And she repeatedly called Amazon. She says an Alexa engineer investigated.
Well, our engineers went through all of your logs. They saw exactly what you told us, exactly what you said happened, and we're sorry.
And did he tell you why it happened?
He said that the device guessed what we were saying. You know, husband and wives, when they're in the privacy of their home, they have conversations that they're not expecting to be sent to their address book.
Those who stood with Christian cake maker Jack Phillips rejoiced at the victory.
We're very excited about the 7-2 victory for Jack Phillips. The court has given him a permanent win.
Lawyer Kristen Wagner represented Phillips, who'd been fighting this for 6 years and lost half his business over it.
It's been a long process, but he's very relieved to know that he will not have to violate his conviction, choose between his convictions and his family business, because that's a price no one should have to pay.
Phillips, who had served gays previously, refused to bake and decorate one special cake to celebrate a same-sex marriage. The couple sued, and Colorado came down on him like a ton of bricks, even attacking him personally. The justices suggested that's its own kind of intolerance.
The big mistake the Colorado Civil Rights Commission made, at least according to this 7-2 Supreme Court ruling, is it didn't protect the rights of Christian businessman Jack Phillips.
They said the state of Colorado repeatedly disparaged his beliefs, disparaged his religious convictions, used analogies to racists and Nazis in order to show hostility towards Mr. Phillips, and the Constitution does not allow that.
Colorado went too far. They denigrated the religious faith of Jack Phillips regarding marriage.
Where government stepped in and said, you have to set aside your beliefs to fit into government's beliefs, the Supreme Court pushed back on that and said, no, your beliefs matter just like the beliefs of any individual within government. In fact, the Supreme Court chastised itself and said, hey, we don't set the conscience for the nation here, individuals do.
Regent Law School Dean Michael Hernandez.
The clear message is to the civil rights commissions out in the country, do not treat Christians with contempt. Do not treat them differently than you treat others that bring their perspectives into the public arena.
The court decided the case on narrow grounds, though. Rachel Lazar, head of Americans United for Separation of Church and State.
Today's decision is very narrow. It's only based on a ruling that the Colorado Civil Rights Commission was biased in its own findings. And the court did reaffirm that businesses that are open have to be open to all.
Meaning this era of prosecuting religious believers who might take similar action could continue. That led Anderson to suggest wording for the next decision.
What it should say is that disagreement is not discrimination. We can disagree about gay marriage without hauling each other into court, without the states punishing people who are simply acting on their belief that marriage unites husband and wife.
Ferris added this was a day to celebrate what's been won.
And the court said, no, religious people, religious business owners have their rights as well, and tolerance is a two-way street.
These days, folks seem to agree that believers have freedom to worship. But as believers shoot back, it matters so much more than just what you do in church. For your religion to be real and meaningful, it has to permeate every part of your life. And that includes your business. And with this 7-2 ruling, the justices seem to have agreed.